Now, we're well and truly into election season. The promises are coming thick and fast this weekend, including today Peter Dutton vowing to slash the number of international students by 80,000 in an effort to ease the housing crisis. He called the Albanese government's 270,000 cap a half-baked plan and promised his policy would tackle the housing crunch and skyrocketing costs.
There is no part of the country that hasn't been negatively impacted by Mr Albanese's Big Australia policy. And we are going to rein migration in. We're cutting migration because we want to put Australians first. We want Australians into homes, and that's exactly what we do.
And you'd want to hope this does something because, look, Albo may have fallen off the stage during the week.
Photos with everyone, OK?
I stepped back one step. I didn't fall off the stage. Just one leg went down, but I was sweet.
He hasn't fallen in the polls, though. The latest news poll is out tonight that has Labor ahead 52-48 two-party preferred, which is the same result as the last federal election. So, in effect, it's back to square one. I'll come back to news poll in a minute. But Freya, the idea that cutting 80,000 or taking them off the student numbers, I think makes sense, but it is a drop in the ocean. I mean, look, it's a start, but really when you consider the million-odd people who've come into this country under the Albanese government, and they're just permanent ones, not counting foreign students who may eventually leave, 80,000 isn't a lot.
Yes, well, it's got to be part of a broader policy around rebalancing the migration system and bringing it down from its record highs. I mean, keep in mind that under the first 2 years of the Albanese government, net permanent migration was 70% higher than any other 2-year period on record in Australian history. So what we're talking about is really unprecedented. But I think the reason we have to look at international students in particular, and the reason I appreciate the focus from the coalition on this area, is that the stress it places on the metropolitan rental market is huge. And the vacancy rate in capital cities is around 2%, and those rents have gone up around 20 to 30% over the last 3 years. So if you cut back on those international students, it's just basic economics, supply and demand. You ease demand and you will make things easier for Australians. But then also for the student experience, for Australian students, this has to happen. I graduated from Sydney Uni just recently. 50% of the university is international students. And at that point, you just have to question, what is the role of our public universities when they're basically just there to service international students? It's gotten out of hand. We don't hate international students at all. They're great. But it all has to be done in moderation, in the right balance.
Well, the unis have been there, I think, in recent years, Kel, to service themselves. I mean, they get full-toed odds up front out of international students. Why wouldn't they take that money? It makes economic sense for them, but I don't think it makes sense for us from an education standpoint, because surely we want a university system that's serving Australians first and foremost, and B, it doesn't serve us when it comes to the broader economy, apart from they might come over and spend some money, but it makes it harder for the rest of us.
Of course it does, and Freya's point's a really good one. I mean, what's happened, the universities have switched to being businesses. Back in the 19th century, John Henry Newman wrote a book called The Idea of the University, and it's the idea that it's an intellectual community, and it's a community which carries the continuity of our intellectual heritage and passes it on from generation to generation. They've turned that into a business. That's wrong. That has to be changed. So the idea that they're there to get enough international students to make a lot of money, that has to go. Now, one of the things that Dutton's talking about doing is dropping the percentage of students in universities from 50% to 25%. But even then, it's disadvantaging Australian students because quite often you have these things called group assignments. In the group assignments, if you're the only one for whom English is a first language, you're going to carry the group. You will do the work and they will all pass based on your work. So the whole structure is wrong, and somehow or other we need to tackle the universities. As far as the student visas are concerned, cutting the numbers is not enough. The rights that go with that visa have also got to change. The problem is they mostly don't go back home. It becomes immigration by stealth. So a student visa needs to say, if you wish to apply for a further visa or an extension, you must go to your home country and apply from there. You cannot apply from here. until that change is made, then nothing. It's illusory. The idea that 80,000 less makes a difference is an illusion, because they move out of student accommodation. They've got another. They're now applying for permanent residency, and while that's being considered, where do they go? Into the rental market, and they destroy the rental market. So we do have to actually do something about the type of the visa, but there needs to be, I don't know how you do it, but we've got to tackle the university sector and say, you're not in business. Your role in our society is a different role. Shape up.
Does it go far enough, Evelyn?
No, I honestly think that this is the tip of the iceberg. I think you were exactly right. Like, for sure, like, it's just basic economics, Freya, that, for the metropolitan areas, of course, like, 1 + 1 = 2, it's going to make it easier. But, like, I actually don't think Dutton has gone anywhere near far enough. Just since Labor was elected last, they have let in approximately 1.4 million immigrants. That's insane, considering we have a population of 24, 25 million, and that's not even of voting age, like, that's even less. So if you can do the math, I'm not a math genius, but if you do the math, that's a significant number of people that Labor have let in. And for Dutton to come out and say, 25%, I don't think it's far enough, because I actually think, aside from cost of living, aside from economics, I think the next biggest thing that people are looking for in the election is immigration. And I think the two actually tie hand in hand.
Cost of living and immigration have sort of become one and the same. I want to come back to the news poll, Joe. 52-48 for Labor, which would be the same result as the last federal election. Are we potentially looking at a situation now where Labor could be returned again with a slim majority? Noting, of course, polls can change. We know how they've changed over the last few weeks. But when it comes to polling, news poll is as close as it's been when it's come to federal elections and state in the last few years.
And it exactly mirrors Redbridge poll that came out over the weekend, and it exactly follows the same trajectory we've seen basically since just before the campaign started, so over the past, say, 3 or 4 weeks. I think we shouldn't be talking ourselves out of a job, because I'm the federal election correspondent for all the News Corp mastheads, so I keep reading. Anything could happen. It is an election campaign. I think there is now a very serious chance for Labor to win majority. As crazy as it sounds, there's a possibility it may even pick up seats the way it's going. It's been and again, people on the right are saying this as much as people I've spoken to in the Labor Party are genuinely shocked by how ill-prepared and half-assed the coalition campaign has been. And again, I also conduct a regular focus group which tracks community sentiment as the campaign goes on. In the first week of the campaign, it was largely a pox on both their houses, but Dutton was really marked down for not having credible plans, for having the sort of, the headline, if you like, the big strong stance on whatever it might be, immigration or whatever.
He just parroted everything that Labor said.
Then just not having the stuff to back it up. Well, again, I mean, if you want to talk about the immigration thing now, he says that he's going to cut it by 80,000. Labor already had legislation to cut it by 50,000, which the coalition voted against, presumably because they didn't want to upset the universities, because the universities are saying, well, this is a problem. And again, there is a real question to be had over when we saturate our universities with international students. But those international students also bring in a truckload of money. Education is Australia's 3rd biggest export, and the money comes from those guys spending up big for the prestige of a degree from one of Australia's sort of group of 8 unis. So, all these things. So what is the economic impact going to be of that money not coming into the economy? And then, of course, we say that universities should not be businesses. The good old John Henry Newman, Cardinal Newman, a British Protestant who converted to the one true faith of Roman Catholicism in the 19th century. But, OK, will the government then fund the universities to make up for the shortfall that they're not getting from the caps on international students? If it's going to do that, where is that money coming from? Now, I haven't seen any details in that in the policy, and I think the official policy from the coalition is that it's going to talk about what the exact cap will be once it's already in government, in consultation with the sector, which doesn't want any cap whatsoever. So again, you just see these sort of thought bubbles from Peter Dutton that don't, and again, I like him, I don't like the demonised Dutton campaign, but there just doesn't seem to be much under the hood.